tuned in to the Ross Tucker Football Podcast, guiding your gridiron journey, none other than your host, former NFL lineman, Ross Tucker.
Oh, yeah, it is. But it's not just any Ross Tucker Football Podcast. It is a Monster Monday presented, as always, by DraftKings. I'm Ross Tucker, former NFL offensive lineman, 5 teams, 7 years. Most of you know that. And we got a bunch of different shows, including this show, the Ross Tucker Football Podcast, which I do every single day, Monday through Friday, all 23 weeks of the NFL season, no matter where I am, which today is in Kansas City, Missouri, because I'm on the call tonight with Kevin Harlan in the Westwood One National Radio booth for the Saints and the Chiefs Monday Night Football. Third straight week doing Monday Night Football for Westwood One, but this will be the first one where it's with Kevin Harlan because this is the first one where there's only one Monday night game today. It's a big one, Saints and the Chiefs. It's also a new week, which means we have new winners. Those of you that spread the word via social media, such an easy contest to win and so fun for me to send you guys some signed memorabilia, whether it's a football card or a picture or these cool press passes I get for doing these games as a broadcaster. Just engage with @RossTuckerPod in any way. It's a reply, it's a quote post, it's a comment, it's anything @RossTuckerPod. I'm @RossTuckerNFL. Then, of course, we got the sponsor confirmation email winner, which is always cool. That's someone that takes advantage of any of our sponsors. Maybe you just send me a picture of you drinking some Labatt. Certainly using the Game Time app to get tickets somewhere is always cool. Those of you that have been buying these boxes for your family from futurefans.com using the code Ross is awesome. Or, of course, westshorehome.com/Ross. I love the YouTube shout-outs because we're growing on YouTube on a weekly basis, youtube.com/Ross Tucker NFL. But also, it's pretty darn cool to do these videos for you guys after you make a comment and send you a cameo-style video. I like doing that. Appreciate those of you that rate and review the show. That's always awesome. I told you about social media. Here's what we do on Mondays. Most of you know that. I'll give you kind of my overarching themes for the Sunday that was in the NFL, presented by Labatt. I love me some Labatt Blue Lights, drinking them with friends and family, living life to the power of we. Always enjoy responsibly beer, Labatt USA, Buffalo, New York. Then I kind of dive into my thoughts on each and every game from the weekend that was in the NFL, really just the Sunday games. I'll give you my takeaways, the things I think are notable or mattered from these games, in addition to the themes, the takeaways. As a reminder, we got the college draft today as well. Even Money Podcast will be a little bit later than normal tomorrow because I'll be flying back from Kansas City first thing. So you won't get your Even Money Podcast till a little bit later tomorrow. Just a heads up on that one. Fantasy Feast Wednesday and Thursday. And every once in a while, we're going to put some of these other shows on some of these other feeds to make sure you guys check them out and just give them a little bit more exposure because we think that they are deserving of a little bit more exposure. Speaking of that, I love talking about all these games. There's actually more themes than usual today. It's Big Show time.
The Big Show.
All right, here's some of the things that jumped out to me on a macro level before we actually dive into the games. Again, a decent amount of injuries before the games even started. I mean, before we even dove into the games, there was a decent amount of injuries, and some of them, I'm so impressed by the ability of the teams to overcome the injuries. You know, I mean, the Giants didn't have Malik Neighbors. If you would have told me that the Giants would win a game without Malik Neighbors, I would have thought Yeah, good luck with that. I thought he was their whole offense. So kudos to the G-men for finding a way to win a game without Malik Neighbors, by far their best offensive skill guy. Then the Bills didn't have Khalil Shakir and Ed Oliver. And by the way, that was noticeable. I mean, that was noticeable on offense that they didn't have Shakir. Shakir is a huge part of what the Bills do on the offensive side of the ball. That's maybe the worst I've seen Josh Allen play in a long, long time. The Colts didn't have Jonathan Taylor or Anthony Richardson going into the game. Romeo Doubs was suspended for the Packers because of how he's been handling his situation, which is weird. But those are some of the guys missing going into the games. In terms of what I saw yesterday that jumped out, one thing that really I think is noticeable, how about these fourth down runs getting stuffed? I don't know what it is. I think it's because, number one, more and more teams are going for it on fourth and short. I think that's a big part of it. And then number two, I think it's pretty clear that more and more teams are doing gun runs on fourth down, which I really strongly dislike because there's just not that many runs out of the shotgun on fourth down. There's not that many runs. It's easier for someone to come off the edge and get involved in the run. You know, usually with the offset back, you're running inside zone away from the offset back, and everybody kind of knows it. I feel like teams need to do a better job having some other options on these fourth down runs. That was something that I thought was very notable. Then you had Aaron Rodgers. Yikes. I mean, look, I love the international games. I think the international games are absolutely phenomenal. Love everything about them. I know we have a lot of international listeners, which is very, very cool on the show. And I know a bunch of you go to these games, like the Jets and Vikings yesterday in Tottenham. So I love seeing all the jerseys. I love seeing when they come back from break and you're all singing and dancing to Sweet Caroline or Oasis. Like, it warms my heart. It really does. I wish you would have gotten a better offensive performance yesterday. I mean, that's kind of the worst that Sam Darnold has played all year. Not only Sam Darnold, but I would say the entire Vikings offense. And then the Jets. Aaron Rodgers had some bad interceptions. I mean, bad interceptions. And the Jets just make so many mistakes. They are objectively, I would say, watching them, objectively not a well-coached team. I mean, that's the thing that jumps out to me the most when I watch the Jets play is they're just not very well coached. I mean, they got beat by the same blitz. And I said this yesterday on social media, at Ross Tucker NFL. They got hit by the same exact blitz that ended the game against the Broncos. Again. The same blitz. Again. You know, so this is the way the NFL works, okay? I think you guys know this, but if something happens and you get beat by a blitz, the next week you're going to see that exact same blitz unless you fixed it. And evidently, pretty clearly, the Jets did not fix it. And so if you don't fix it, they're going to come right back and run it again. And that's exactly what happened against the Jets. Other things that jumped out to me just from the Sunday that was, how about Joe Flacco? Can we please have this guy be the all-time backup quarterback in NFL games? Absolutely love Flacco and everything he brings to the table. I mean, Flacco was out there running yesterday. Flacco was obviously dropping dimes. He did an excellent job with Alec Pierce. That was really cool. Just a huge fan of Joe Flacco. And clearly, I mean, they put up 34 points. I mean, that he wasn't the problem for the Colts yesterday. Other themes included coaches settling for long field goals over and over again. Obviously, most notable in the Bengals game. But what is the deal? I've never seen it like this before, where coaches are so comfortable going ahead and settling for like crazy long field goals. I mean, it's just, to me, it's like wild that they're okay with having field goals like this where it's 50 some yards. To me, that is not cool and not acceptable to have 50 some yard field goals and think that that's how you're going to win the game. There was also obviously some huge swing games in the AFC contenders, right? I mean, that Bills-Bengals game, the Bills-Texans game could have gone either way. The Bengals-Ravens game could have gone either way, and it would have been gigantic in both cases if it did. Absolutely gigantic if you think about who the contenders are in the AFC. So that jumped out to me for sure as well. And then I would say the last thing, Jack, would just be the huge swing plays in these games, especially the late games, right? I'm watching the late games here in my hotel in Kansas City, and the Giants fumble on the goal line, and it goes all the way back 102 yards for a pick six, or, for a touchdown. Rayshon Jenkins. And by the way, the Giants still won the game. Now, the Raiders weren't so lucky. Gardner Minshew goes ahead and throws a pick six to Surtain right on the goal line. That goes the other way. The Niners had that blocked field goal touchdown. So that was very, very notable to me, was just all of the huge swing plays that took place in these games. Anyway, those are the big topics that jumped out to me. I love tailgating, I love contests, and I love Smirnoff because they're giving fans in select areas of the country a chance to win the ultimate game day experience. From tickets to sideline passes and much more. Just head to WeDoGameDays.com until November 15th to enter for your chance to win. Smirnoff, We Do Game Days. Please drink responsibly. Smirnoff number 21 vodka, distilled from grain, 40% alcohol by volume. The Smirnoff Company, New York, New York. Please not share with anyone under legal drinking age. No purchase necessary. 21 plus. Ends 11/15/24. See rules at website for participating area and other important details. Sponsored by Diageo Americas, Incorporated, New York, New York. All right, we'll start with the Vikings and the Jets. Vikings win 23-17. The Vikings are now 5-0. The Jets fall to 2-3. Absolutely brutal loss for the Jets on so many levels. In particular because they're not going to win games with Aaron Rodgers making some of these mistakes he made. I mean, he had 3 bad interceptions. The first 2 early ones were really bad. The Van Ginkel pick 6. The other one where he just totally overthrew his receiver. If Aaron Rodgers just plays okay in this game and doesn't turn the football over, then the Jets would have won. I thought at one point the Jets were going to set the record for pass interference penalties in one game. Unbelievable how many different pass interference or holding or whatever, which, by the way, I thought they got kind of a raw deal. I thought some of those were legit PIs and some of those were not. Was not a fan of some of the calls in that game. I mentioned this earlier, I'll say it again. I just don't think the Jets are very well coached on offense. You see free runners stuffing runs, free hitters as they call them, stuffing some of the games, some of the run plays for the Jets. You see guys coming free at Aaron Rodgers. They are objectively not a well-coached team on offense. And Rodgers making some of the decisions and throws he made only serves to really compound that. I mentioned earlier, I didn't think Sam Darnold played particularly well, which I guess that's a pretty good sign for the Jets D, but also a pretty good sign for the Vikings that they can win a game even without Sam Darnold playing well. And I think a big factor in that, which is something we need to note, Aaron Jones got hurt early in the game. And I think it's pretty clear that they're just not as good offensively. He brings a dynamic to them that they really, really need to have. And without Jones, they're just a different offense. You saw yesterday why the Vikings signed him and also why the Packers moved on from him, right? The Vikings signed him because he's a difference-making player. The Packers moved on because he had been having some trouble staying healthy as of late. All right, next game, Bears 36, Carolina Panthers 10. How about the Chicago Bears? By far their best offensive performance of the year. Now, in fairness, they are going against a really, really poor, and I mean really poor defense in the Carolina Panthers. Like, I feel like the Panthers defense might be historically bad. DJ Moore had by far his best game of the year, it seemed like, against his former team in Carolina. DeAndre Swift had a really nice game. Is a good thing to see for the Bears. They're trying to keep as much of it off of Caleb Williams' plate as they possibly can. I thought Caleb Williams had a really nice game as well for the Bears, which was exciting if you're a Bears fan. Now, again, I think you should temper it a little bit with how bad the Carolina defense is, but that's okay. The Bears defense is legit. I mean, the Panthers scored on that Chuba Hubbard right up the middle touchdown. You thought, oh boy, here come the Panthers. And after that, the Bears defense just pretty much totally shut them down after that. All right, next game, Ravens 41, Bengals 38. This game was awesome. I mean, this game was absolutely awesome. And really, this game could have gone either way like 5 different times. Lamar Jackson was utterly ridiculous. He could have been, one of our winners today for the hungriest performance or whatever, because Lamar was amazing in this game. I mean, the play where he fumbled the ball and picked it up and ran around, threw a touchdown pass to Isaiah Likely, just absurd. Joe Burrow was, I want to say, for the 4th straight game now, Joe Burrow was fantastic, but he had a super costly interception late in the game to Marlon Humphrey. And that's kind of where the Bengals are, right? The Bengals defense is not playing very well. So, and I think Burrow might have even said this before the game. They need Burrow to be almost perfect, and he wasn't. He was good, but he wasn't perfect. The interception late to Humphrey was a critical error. Jamar Chase had an amazing game. And I talked earlier in terms of some of the themes about teams settling for, 50-some-yard field goals. That was the Bengals in overtime. Lamar Jackson fumbles a snap. It was a good shotgun snap from Linderbaum. He fumbled it, and then it backfired because there was a bad hold by the Bengals rookie punter. So McPherson misses the field goal, and it costs them because then the Ravens get a long run from Derrick Henry and they win the game. That is the type of loss that will really, really sting for the Cincinnati Bengals. Speaking of losses that sting, the Texans 23, Bills 20. Nico Collins was awesome for the Texans, including that deep post for a touchdown, until he got hurt. I thought in the first half that the defense was concerning for the Bills. It felt like Cam Akers was running them over. It felt like they couldn't stop Nico Collins on the deep posts. But then they settled in, and in the second half, I thought they were much, much better. They even forced C.J. Stroud into a couple of costly turnovers. The problem was, this is the worst I think I've ever seen Josh Allen play. I mean, literally, he missed so many throws that he never misses. Thought it was maybe the worst game he's ever played. Really bad. And then late, I will say this. I didn't think that the Sean McDermott, I didn't think his play calling late was as egregious as everybody else says. You know, his thought process was the Texans have 3 timeouts. So if we just run, they're going to get the ball back at midfield, and they're going to have a great chance to go ahead and kick the game-winning field goal like they did. I think the difference is you would have at least gotten them to use all 3 timeouts if you're McDermott, and so then they wouldn't have been able to throw that pass to get a little bit closer. I think that's the difference. And you would have taken a little bit more time off the clock probably if you had run it on those plays. Next up, Jags 37, Colts 34. Tank Bigsby, what a day for him. I was very disappointed by the Colts defense. They couldn't affect Trevor Lawrence. I know they got a lot of guys out, but Brian Thomas is going for 70-yard touchdowns against them. They let Trevor Lawrence have by far his best game of the season. They couldn't tackle Tank Bigsby to save their life. And kudos to the Jags, by the way, for Trayvon Walker and Josh Hines-Allen being awesome late in that game, making plays to overcome what was an incredible performance for Joe Flacco. Not much to say in the Dolphins and the Patriots. I mean, the Patriots can't throw it. I guess they ran it decently. The Dolphins actually got a spark after Achane went out. Jalen Wright gave them a spark, and that was all they needed for that late touchdown drive. And then they were able to hold on to get that win. Miami 15, New England 10. How about Washington and Cleveland? You know, a lot's been made about Washington and Jaden Daniels, but how about the offensive line? Presented by Campbell's Chunky, soup that eats like a meal. We need to start talking about this Commanders offensive line. I know Jaden Daniels is fantastic. Everybody knows Jaden Daniels is fantastic. But they're running it pretty effectively. He's giving them time to throw. I'm impressed by this Commanders offensive line. They are way better than I thought they would be coming into the year. Meanwhile, on the flip side, Deshaun Watson was horrendous. The Washington D was making plays. 7 sacks. Frankie Louvu and Bobby Wagner, a couple linebackers, each had multiple sacks. Denver was able to take care of the Raiders 34-18. I thought it was Bo Nix's best game, especially in the second half. Maybe he should yell at Sean Payton a little bit more often. The game totally turned on that Surtain pick 6. I mean, that totally changed everything. Minshew then had another bad interception to Riley Moss. He got benched for Aiden O'Connell. And the Denver defense, I told you this, they have been legit in every game the entire season. Speaking of legit, how about the Arizona Cardinals and that win on the road against the Niners? Wow, that was awesome. James Conner was a beast in the second half. Kyler Murray had that long touchdown run early. Then he made plays late to Marvin Harrison Jr., to Elijah Higgins. No kicker for the Niners was definitely a factor, although they did make one field goal in that case. Arizona D was much better. They forced those key turnovers and held the Niners to 0 points in the second half. I mean, the Niners had a blocked field goal for a touchdown when Chad Ryland kicked the field goal too low, and they still lost the game. How about that? Speaking of how about that, I thought Jordan Love was much better in the second half against the Rams as the Packers beat the Rams 24-19. He had that horrible pick 6 in the first half. But even without Dobbs, he found Tucker Kraft, who's a beast. Xavier McKinney recovers a fumble and gets another interception. That was the difference in the game, right? The Rams, too many turnovers. Stafford, they need him without Kupp and a guy like Puka Nacua to not turn it over. Unfortunately, that's exactly what he's been doing. As for the Giants, I'm going to say that their D-line and Dexter Lawrence had the 11 Oaks hungriest performance of the week. Genuine Wagyu beef, Angus beef, heritage breed pork, free-range chicken, all locally raised. I have been there on the farm, at the store, in Newville, PA. You want legit family-owned meat? 11oaksfarms.com. We got to start talking about this Giants defense. I mean, they've invested a lot in the defensive line, and it worked. They are awesome up front. Dexter Lawrence, 3 sacks. He's as good as any D tackle in the NFL, and having the 2 edge rushers really opens things up. For them to be able to win that game without Malik Neighbors, as I said earlier, was a gigantic step in the right direction for them. And then finally, Cowboys beating the Steelers with all those injuries. The Cowboys still able to get it done. There were obviously, issues with the rain delay and the weather, but the Cowboys doubled them up in terms of time, in terms of yardage in this game. Even with the turnovers from Dak early, the Cowboys still won the game, a game they absolutely had to have. I think we're done here.
Thanks for tuning in to the Ross Tucker Football Podcast. Make sure to also check out Even Money, Fantasy Feast, and College Draft, all on the DraftKings Network, YouTube, or subscribe to the podcast on your favorite platform.
Shout out myfrontpagestory.com. Huge fan of myfrontpagestory.com. How about backofficeschedule.com, humanheadnyc.com, Sporticulture, and Pizza Boy Brew?